Just checking this out. UK Premium Media Journal. Checking this out. It's unlisted at the moment. Just poor connection. Testing it out. Yeah, they're hacking it. Right, so let's edit. Right. So basically, if this doesn't get stopped, to show you some evidence of that. Due to, first of all, limited companies, Northamptonshire County Council, evidence of that, despite all this, being targeted unlawfully. The evidence of that, limited company in 2018, go back on my videos on this channel and see what happened on the 21st of 11th, 2018. And it's not until May 2019 an offer by email was not by the public servants working for this company, Northamptonshire County Council's limited company, its agents in the Department of, they keep changing the department now. It's meant to be the Director of Public Health and Wellbeing. Well, my notice of intent, trying to draft up, but let me just link up the dots. The abuse of access to any fair hearing and the behaviour and breach of oath of office is caused by a guy called David. He's a civil servant. His breach of oath of office in his public role for Ministry of Justice and company failed to accept the medical evidence. I couldn't travel to Manchester. This is going back in June 2019. So I did a response with enough information and address to aid them. And as they failed to accept that fact, he went ahead and decided these men and women, and let me go to my notes, a male called M. Jeff and a male General Medical Council, I believe he's meant to be a member of, if he's a doctor, P.L. Leia, and then an unknown female, L. Payne, a female, I don't even know what skills they have, and made assumptions. They call it a panel. They're not even a lawful court de chair. It's not even a common law court, it's an administrative court. Anyway, to make assumptions by criminal injuries compensation. Now that is also into company. I don't have all the information to hand, the paperwork wise. So basically, in a nutshell, when I soon found out that the offer of, by the way, in 2011 and up to 2018, that's over 8 years, not one public servant have contacted myself. So what public service department keeps the matter open for over 8 years? It was a clerk, male, reopened on the presumptions on HMRC, their administrative court, and that's in head office in Glasgow. Now, when you check out the Criminal Injuries Compensation Limited, this has been going on for years. 2004, I've become physically unwell by 2010, and all these years on today, unable to do personal care wise, and let alone responses to this unlawful harassment, basically, in a nutshell, which has been going on these past months. It's no fault of my own, and so I contact these women specialists. Well, they help in women's disabilities, and I found something out which I don't know if anyone else knows. If you have an accident, injury, while you're on the offer, Departments and Pensions Benefits, it's a Social Security Statutory Act 1997, a lump sum regulation 2008, states quite clearly in the recovery unit that not one Ministry of Justice limited company, its agents, any department, not even the websites or documentation, states that if you receive obviously over £6,000, it does affect all of the offer of ESA benefit. If you get council tax offer reduction benefit, any NHS assistance costs, medical services, eye tests, dental care, it's quite a long list, and housing benefit, you mean living social housing, and it affects everything, right? So it's bad enough surviving trauma and the effects of this horrific tort crime all these years to date, and it's like a re-trigger. So as it's fine, my friend's trying to get him some paperwork. And the point that I wasn't aware that former lawyers years ago, an LPP, not held responsible for their negligence, and not informing me that how it affects if you're all those years ago. It goes back in history, so 2019 up to 2004 roughly. The Departments and Pensions its department civil servants can claw back anything you've been offered, for example, results of your injuries, and you needed to be offered funding to assist with work. That was the situation. And from that year, and unfortunately it's not very good being like that. Physically worse by getting run over 2009, 10 to date, physically unwell. Yeah, so you can see what I've tried to do, and then I'll go and find out third now, Sunday of the 11th, 2019, the behaviour of this particular male called David. He's a civil servant and ignored my letter 17th of June 2019 to state the medical evidence enough to assist them to assist me and to offer a different method other than video, link and voice on the phone. And all it was about was his assumptions why I've not signed the offer contract to receive the payment. Well, I was going through, anybody can imagine, you're going through getting your additional paperwork for a paper assessment of a medical, trying to get the medical evidence together for all that as well, the grounds for a non-face-to-face medical with the offer of the Department of Works and Pensions or the person dependents payment offer. The only reason they offered me that was to stitch me up. Yeah, to set me up, to fail, to be controlled by the system. I can't tell you how really serious this is, because they've gone ahead and knew full well. It's all connected, if you go back on this channel, with the housing, for why they won't repair my home for 2 years. When you find out the massive cutbacks nationally and locally in England for adult house social care combined subject, and it links to pushing people with high care needs into there's a well-known company nationally, and they have contracts with and using the public purse to do this. So that's because I've been discredited again. There's evidence of 17th of the 4th 2019 report shows clearly. Why should I need to send that off? Just to rebut their assumptions again. And the fact that they've used, the fact last year I got email evidence, they've moved offices now, these civil servants, 31st of the 8th 2018, I was not aware why they needed another OT assessment process when I found out old care plans I've still got, old previous, same, because I've never received any evidence of any policy changes. My physical needs not changed, none of my use of OT equipment, which is a separate contract with the clinical commission groups in my area, funded by NHS England, has changed. It's just the fact that certain individuals, the CEO and board directors and local individuals in housing subject, refused to repair my wet room, and my secure tender got rights. So they have gone behind my back unlawfully without my consent and gone to the adult health social care civil servants in my area to imply we're concerned about the individual. That caused me additional harm, alarm, distress, and they've gone and used the assumptions. They knew full well this was going to happen, because I thought, well, thinking that the local vice service manager sends a vice individual in April, well, it was March and April And then June, that individual was pushing me to go to this place to have this face-to-face medical when I already got medical evidence to say I meet a policy requirement to be able to home visit. But then all that backfired, and when a certain civil servant left her job, go back on the biz about all that on this channel. Well, I was left basically with no offer replacement of a social worker, healthcare professional at all. And it wasn't until May, an email out the blue, and it wasn't even by the actual company. Let me show you company's house information. Northamptonshire Trading Limited, same Percival Olympics House, company number